Kyle Rittenhouse's attorney goes public, Nancy Pelosi claims setup, Joe Biden confuses a bit of light bulb history, and Governor Cuomo says the quiet part out loud. All that and more on this episode of The Johnny Ray Show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Johnny Ray Show, from a planet, obviously not Earth, where riots are encouraged and cheered, and self-defense is frowned upon and scrutinized. I mean, seriously, when did America warp into this crazy time realm where a person who has an active warrant for sexual assault, third-degree rape to be specific, where that is memorialized and given sainthood, and a person who protects themselves from being curb-stomped by a mob of angry rioters is vilified? Social media blew up over the last couple of weeks with hashtag Save Our Children. And now, Alyssa Milano and the radical blue-haired feminist Nazis ran roughshod on social media over the last 3 or 4 years, spewing hashtag MeToo. And now, Kyle Rittenhouse is a 17-year-old young man who has been charged with first-degree intentional murder in the shooting deaths of 2 males in Kenosha, Wisconsin during the Kenosha riots that were in the process of burning down the entire city. We'll speak more on that and get into all the details in just a moment, but first. Today, podcasts are all the rage. Everyone wants a voice, and now Anchor has given you that voice. Anchor is the easiest way to podcast, whether it's political or fun, about parenting, or just your day-to-day routine. Anchor is the free and easy way to be heard. Anchor allows you to create, edit, and publish your podcast right from your smartphone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so you don't have to. It's everything you need to create a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. That's Anchor, ANCHOR.FM, and get started today. Kyle Rittenhouse is a 17-year-old young man from Antioch, Illinois, who was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He was officially charged with 6 counts, but I could only find 5 listed on any news outlet, so I'll stand with 5 counts. They are 2 counts of intentional first-degree homicide, 1 count of attempted homicide, 1 count of reckless endangering safety, and 1 count of possession of a dangerous weapon. Now, for those of you who don't know, I don't know how you couldn't know, because CNN has had 24-hour coverage of this with their 5-second clips for the last 48 hours or so. They've had the clip on a loop. But I digress. For those of you who may not know, Kyle was in Kenosha trying to help protect businesses that the mayor of Kenosha and the governor of Wisconsin left to burn at the hands of the Jacob Blake rioters, when he was accosted by a man named Joseph Rosenbaum, who attempted to attack him with what reports are saying a Molotov cocktail. Kyle attempted to remove himself from that area, and Rosenbaum pursued him, as well as a large group that followed. A gunshot could be heard in the video clip that was released, as Rittenhouse turned and fired 4 rounds, hitting Rosenbaum in the head. Rittenhouse left the area, circled around, and came back, and even called the medics, called the authorities, to let them know what had happened. Another video, the original video, then picks up with Rittenhouse being chased out of that area by what can only be assumed as a similar mob, or the same mob, and they were chasing him down the street, screaming at him and throwing things. Rittenhouse was fleeing the mob when he seemingly tripped as one man approached him to what I like to call the old curb stomp tactic. He shot. A second man approached him, hitting him in the side of the neck with a skateboard. That would be Anthony Huber. Rittenhouse fired again, hitting Huber in the head. A third man approached holding a pistol of his own, and Rittenhouse fired once more, hitting that man in the arm. Rittenhouse then got up and fled to safety where the police were, with his hands raised, surrendering to the officers. Now, for those of you listening on YouTube, you'll be able to see the footage. I apologize for the audio only folks, but you aren't able to see the footage here. The left has immediately lambasted Kyle as a murdering, racist, bigoted, Trump-supporting far-right crazy without any evidence of any of that. In fact, evidence to the contrary has now surfaced in the form of a video interview that Kyle did with somebody prior to the shooting, where he states that he was working to protect businesses and the citizens of Kenosha, as well as a video of him helping injured protesters. Listen, I'm always willing to call a spade here, and I'm always saying, wait for the evidence. Evidence is what you should be waiting for. But as of now, with the evidence presented, this is completely a justified shooting. This young man was being chased down by grown men and women in a mob fashion. The only thing that this kid did wrong was that he was under the age of 18 in possession of a firearm. But he felt like he was being forced to step up and protect the people, since the mayors and the governors wouldn't allow the police to do that. And when a 17-year-old boy, girl, anybody feels that they have to step up and do the job that the police aren't able to do because of the mayors and the governors of cities and states, that is the problem. Now, on to the men that he killed. Joseph Rosenbaum was a convicted sex offender. He had previously served jail time for sexual abuse and domestic abuse charges. Huber, the other man that he killed, had a fairly similar rap sheet consisting of several cases of battery, drug charges, as well as strangulation of his then girlfriend. Now, in no way am I saying that these men deserve to die because of their past indiscretions, but they were no saints. Just like George Floyd, Michael Brown, Freddie Gray, Rayshard Brooks, and so many others that the left paint, they aren't saints. I mean, for Jesus' sakes, last week Facebook was flooded with hashtag Save Our Children, but when a convicted sex offender is killed, they call him, and I'm quoting from the New York Daily News here, he was fighting for a cause. He wasn't a rioter, he was a protester and a defender, end quote. A GoFundMe was set up for Huber and Rosenbaum. Big surprise. There was also one set up for Kyle Rittenhouse, although Rittenhouse's GoFundMe was ironically removed, and Facebook has even banned people from sharing the link to Kyle Rittenhouse's GoFundMe. They've even said that any supportive post for Kyle Rittenhouse will be removed, will be censored. It just supporting this young man defending himself against a mob of violent criminals is a cause for Facebook to censor you. It's beyond words how social media is so biased. Facebook, Twitter, they're all the same with it. But as the left would say, nothing to see here, move along, move along. Now on to other news. Nancy Pelosi has went full on Marie Antoinette. She has spent the better part of 4 months degrading anyone who went against her lockdown orders, her mask mandates, even going so far as to claim that not wearing a mask was the equivalent to killing grandma. She has shut down businesses in her district for months on end, but my, how the tides have turned. She was caught on camera inside of a salon without a mask, when masks are supposed to be necessary to the health and well-being of America, and salons are supposedly completely closed. So, a few days ago, videos surfaced of Nancy Pelosi inside of a salon where she was getting a blowout done to her hair. Once the video was released, she received a lot of backlash, not just from the right though, but from business owners who she forced to be shut down for months and months. Restaurant owners, salons, barber shops, etc., etc. But what does she do? in the typical radical left liberal fashion, she pushed the blame on everyone but herself. Here, take a listen to this.
There are many over the years. I've been there many times. I appreciate the question, and let me just say this: I take responsibility for trusting the word of a neighborhood salon that I've been to over the years many times, and that when they said, well, we're able to accommodate people one person at a time, and that we can set up that time, I trusted that. As it turns out, it was a setup. So I take responsibility for falling for a setup. And that's all I'm going to say on that.
Do you think you owe the service industry an apology? I just spoke to a San Francisco barber who's a fan of yours. He supports you, but he thinks you owe the service industry an apology.
Well, I don't. I think that they owe, that this salon owes me an apology for setting up. But I will say this, in fairness to him and in sympathetic to him, we have to get our country moving again. And I will not let this subject take away from the fact that we have 180,000 plus people who have died from this virus. Since we passed the bill, more than half of those people have died since we passed the legislation. 4.6 million, I know, 4.6 million have become infected since we passed the legislation. And there are answers. There are scientific answers for this. 96,000 people have died since we passed the HEROES Act. So they want to jump on this. I think it's really important for us to pass the bill so in a scientific way we can address the virus and we can bring people back to work. I have been inundated by people who are in the hair service industry saying, thank you for calling attention to this. We need to get back to work. We need to get back to work. And many of them annoyed at the setup that was there for a purpose that has nothing to do with
It was a setup. I was set up. It was a setup. I swear, you can't make this stuff up. She will not allow this to take away from the situation. Oh, believe me, Nance, we won't let anything take away from this situation. I can promise you that. She had the audacity to say the salon owes her an apology, as if we're in some sort of Wario land that you or your assistant who represents you can make a phone call or send an email to set something up, and you don't even know your own policies. How do you not even know your own policies? I don't grasp the thought process that people are agreeing with Nancy Pelosi on this one. I just don't. Like, even if, okay, for the sake of argument, we'll say that the salon owner set you up. Okay? What does that say about your critical thinking, Nancy, that a salon owner calls you and says, hey, Nancy, check it out. I know that you've shut our salon down for 4 months, and we're probably going to be going out of business because we can't go to work. But why don't you come on in? Why don't you come in and get a blowout done on that hair of yours? Like, come on now. What does that show of your critical thinking? Don't you think that you, as the person running that district, should know that salons aren't supposed to be open? Never mind the fact that your assistant set up the appointment. Well, never mind that. Shouldn't you have known that you probably shouldn't have been there? And if it was okay for you to be there, shouldn't you have been wearing a mask? That thing over your face that you've been saying is the only thing keeping people from dying of the COVID? I mean, come on. I've been saying this for months too, and it's getting out of hand. I've been saying it for months that if you can't trust a Democrat to run their own districts, how can they be trusted to run the entire country? It's not Republican cities that are burning down right now. It's Democrat cities. It's not Republican places that these higher-ups, these elitists, the left elites, it's them that are breaking their own rules. Andrew Cuomo did it when he locked down New York, but yet he was out at the gym. Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, when she shut everything down except for when she needed to go to the hair salon, and then had the audacity to tell the reporters that the reason that she was allowed to go do that was because she was a person of power who appreciated her hygiene, who looked out for her hygiene, as though the peon nobodies shouldn't be worried about their hygiene or their attributes physically. They shouldn't be worried about getting a haircut or getting their hair done. But because you're a leftist elitist, you can do that. This has been the liberal outlook since day one. Victim, victim, victim. That's what they are. They've done it with everything for a very long time now. They've done it with the lockdown. They did it with the economy now. They've done it for the unemployment. They do it when any person of color gets shot, or hell, even at this point, spoken to by the police. Rules for thee, none for me has been their motto for quite some time now. And it's getting to the point where more and more people are seeing it, and that's why more and more people are leaving the Democratic Party and sliding on over to the right side, to the Trump side. Because Donald Trump's not telling everybody they should stay in their house and wear a mask and that they should not go anywhere or do anything that they need to do, and then turning around and doing it himself. The liberals want to take everything that Donald Trump does and throw it under a microscope and scrutinize and criticize it, but he's not the one that's being a complete hypocrite. That's one thing. I've said it since Trump took office, since he started running back in 2015. I've said it. There are a lot of things I dislike about Trump. I dislike the fact that he tweets all the time. I think that's silly. I don't think he should be on Twitter trying to get a rise out of the left. Sometimes it's funny, but most of the time it's pointless. It's silliness. But one thing I can say about Donald Trump is that he is not a hypocrite like the left is. He is not somebody who tells me as a blue-collar person, you can't go outside, you can't go to the park, you can't go to the beach, you can't go to a restaurant, and then turns around and does it himself. So far, at least 3 Democrats have done that. At least 3. Now, Nancy Pelosi, Andrew Cuomo, and Lori Lightfoot. All 3 have told people in their cities that they cannot go out and they cannot do something, and then turned around and did it themselves. And if you can't see that, then you are in for a very, very horrible remaining time on this earth. Because if you can't see that, you are severely blind. Joe Biden also made headlines while at a rally on Thursday in Wisconsin, where he made the wildly false claim that Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. A black man did. Take a listen.
We gotta, for example, why in God's name don't we teach history in history classes? A black man invented the light bulb, not a white guy named Edison. Okay? There's so much. Did anybody know before what's recently happened? That Black Wall Street in Oklahoma was burned to the ground? Anybody know these things? We act because we don't teach them. We got to give people facts.
Now, a lot of people are giving him leeway, saying he was confused. But no, Joe Biden's always confused. This was just his way to pander to persons of color by clearly attempting to rewrite history to suit his needs. I mean, the left has been doing this for years. Every year in February, they concoct some crazy notion that historians have quote-unquote whitewashed history, and black people truly invented everything, and white people stole their inventions. Again, they gotta play the victims. The truth is, Edison patented the incandescent light bulb in 1879. Now, in 1881, Lewis Howard Latimer, a black man, did patent an improved incandescent light bulb that would last longer than the original that Edison patented. But that doesn't change the history of Thomas Edison inventing it. Biden also mentioned the Black Wall Street here in Oklahoma. Oh, you mean the massive murdering spree that Democrats, mostly Democrats, committed and then indoctrinated black people to believe was all Republicans' doings? That Black Wall Street? But what can you really expect from the group of people that tear down everything history related that they dislike and then blame everybody else for the things that they don't tear down? And this last week, yet another Democrat making headlines. Libs gotta lib, I guess. Governor of New York Andrew Cuomo, or as I like to call him, Fredo Cuomo, decided it'd be a good idea to go on record threatening President Donald Trump. He literally said, if Trump plans to come to New York, he better bring an army. I swear you can't make this stuff up. J.K. Rowling couldn't write better scripts here. Listen to what Fredo had to say.
President Trump has actively been trying to kill New York City ever since he's been elected. It really does speak volumes about him. Changed his residence to go to Florida. Why? He can't come back to New York. He can't. He's going to walk down the street in New York? Forget bodyguards. He better have an army if he thinks he's going to walk down the street in New York.
Whoa, slow down there, Fredo.
Send Fredo off to do this, send Fredo off to do that. Let Fredo take care of some Mickey Mouse nightclub somewhere. Send Fredo to pick somebody up at the airport. It ain't the way I wanted it. I can handle things, I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart, and I want respect.
Now, this came after Trump listed New York City as one of the cities he was planning on defunding over the riots that have been going on since the George Floyd shooting back in, March? Along with New York City was Portland, Seattle, and D.C. Don Jr. responded to Fredo with a tweet, and it said, "Another Joe Biden voter threatening violence. This is the new norm in the Democrat Party." And I mean, he's not really lying. It really is. That's what they do. They don't like something, so they immediately jump to threatening and trying to cause violence. Now, Cuomo quickly changed his comment, saying, and I quote, "I didn't mean President Trump was actually being threatened with violence. I meant those to illustrate how disliked he is in New York City." Yeah, sure you did, Fredo.
I'm smart and I want respect.
I mean, the left is all about violence. His own brother threatened a man in a restaurant last year for calling him Fredo. He followed that up with threatening a bicyclist elderly person earlier this year when he was supposed to be quarantined and was out strolling around like it was no big deal. It doesn't just stop with news anchors, though. Here's a whole package showing a whole lot of threats of violence over the last 4 years.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is
white men, most of them radicalized up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
I mean, that is literally everybody who's a high-ranking person in the Democrat Party or a highly respected person in the liberal media. I mean, you have Kamala Harris, who's the candidate for vice president right now. You have Maxine Waters, who has been in just about everybody's business for the last 20 years. You have Don Lemon, who is highly regarded as the liberal anchorman of the century. You have Joe Biden, who is the presidential candidate right now for the Democrat Party, all issuing threats of violence in some way, shape, or form. Joe Biden said he wanted to punch Donald Trump and that he wanted to take him behind the woodshed. You got Kamala Harris saying that the riots and violence and destruction of businesses is not going to stop unless they take over as presidency. It's ridiculous to me to believe that these are the people that are regarded as the voice of the Democratic, the liberal left, and they are issuing threats of violence as major as these are. It's ridiculous to me. But in any event, that's all the time that I have for tonight, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Please don't miss the weekly Johnny Ray debate show tomorrow night. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course Anchor. Thank you in advance. Good night, and of course, God bless.